Nightfall is the defining Batman arc of the 90s, when Bane emerged from the shadows and unleashed the full fury of Batman's formidable rogues gallery against the Dark Knight, slowly and systematically taking down Batman's defenses. Bane targeted Batman himself in Batman Volume 1, issue 497. Alone and exhausted in Wayne Manor, Batman returns home to find Bane waiting on him. With nothing left in his energy reserves, Batman wages a futile fight against his adversary that ends with Bane breaking Batman's back over his knee. Batman barely landed a single punch on his monstrous opponent, making this one of the Dark Knight's most one-sided losses in his 8-decade history. For an obsessed genius, Lex Luthor sure had fun coming up with overly complicated traps to foil Superman. One such trap involved making it necessary for Superman to need a whole new suit, and then disguising himself as the man who provides it. Hey, it even comes with an anti-kryptonite belt. It says so, right there on the belt, in case there's any doubt. But unbeknownst to Superman, Lex has actually hidden a lead-wrapped lump of kryptonite in the belt, which the incredibly gullible Superman doesn't seem to notice. Word to the wise Man of Steel, thoroughly check out all aspects of your work clothes next time. Okay, buddy? As anybody who has watched America's Funniest Home Videos knows, one sure way to get a laugh is to show a dude getting knocked in you-know-where. And Spider-Man learned this while fighting the villains Screwball and Jester. While Screwball live-streamed the encounter, Jester took out his slingshot and sparked a solid hit right between the old spider thighs. And it didn't help that this occurred when Doc Ock had taken over Spider-Man's body, or that the humiliation continued with paint-filled balloons. Peter Parker might have dealt with such humiliation a little bit better than Doc Ock. He at least kept his cool while battling Spot, a guy who's basically a human portal, and ended up punching himself in the face. Poor Spidey. So Flash was fooled by a painting during Barry Allen's first ever outing as a superhero. So I guess in theory I should cut him some slack, but I'm not going to. See, the deal was that the fastest man alive, once again, the Flash, was being thwarted by the slowest man alive, namely Turtle Man. Sounds fun in theory, but in truth it was kinda painful to watch Barry unable to capture a guy because he kept overdoing things or not noticing he was there. But the biggest humiliation came when Turtle Man fooled Flash by simply painting a silhouette of himself on a wall. Barry thought this was the real thing, and while reaching for the shadow, smashes into the wall. Very Wile E. Coyote for a super speedster. So, as the name Avengers Disassembled implies, this was a bad point in time for almost all of the Avengers, and it certainly qualifies as one of their worst defeats. The 2004 to 2005 crossover storyline was Brian Michael Bendis' way of revamping the Avengers into a team and state that he felt was, better at the time. It featured a story that weaved between several key Avengers members and showed them at their worst. Iron Man's long-term love interest dies, so he decides to give up being the Secretary of Defense in Iron Man. Thor and the rest of the Asgardians are wiped out by a force that is supposedly the physical embodiment of Ragnarok, which they had averted numerous times before. Spider-Man, poor guy, is transformed into a spider creature loyal to the Spider Queen, Adriana. In the main Avengers storyline, they're also harmed by a mind-controlled Scarlet Witch. She summons a zombified Jack of Hearts, who explodes, a weakened Vision, who upchucks up eggs that turned into Ultron drones, and a Kree warship. Numerous heroes are killed in this conflict, including Vision, Jack of Hearts, Ant-Man, Scott, and Hawkeye. On top of that, the Avengers have their security clearance revoked, and public opinion about them has fallen. So this was a bitter defeat for the Avengers. Just Once they confront Scarlet Witch, she sends wave after wave of artificially created constructs until Doctor Strange puts her into a coma. Not a good one all around. The humiliation from the defeat of Gorilla Grodd publicly capturing the League stems from the fact that it came about due to the League's own faults. So in this story, Gorilla sets up the Secret Society with the intention to prey on the League's weaknesses. After the members got hot-headed over how they didn't need the others, Grodd made his move by capturing each member individually. And in order to rub it in the faces of the public at large, Grodd had the heroes strapped up and encased in pods for everybody to see. So not only were they handily, taken out earlier, they were also made to look really stupid. It took the Martian Manhunter's shapeshifting to save the League from further embarrassment by freeing them. 13 years ago, Peter Parker was on a school field trip to a science lab. There, a spider got a large dose of radioactivity, dying for life. Spider bit Peter on the hand. We all know this. I know we all know this. But what we don't know is something else happened too. In this case, the spider didn't die right away. Instead, it crawled on the floor, bit a young dark-haired girl near the ankle, and that's how we got Silk. And she is Spider-Man's original sin. After being dead for a while, having Doc Ock in his body, Peter's like, hey, I'm gonna go out and fight some crime. This is Amazing Spider-Man, Volume 3, Issue 1. The Menagerie, a new crime team. We've got White Rabbit, Skeen, Hippo, and new villainous Panda Mania. They're going on a rampage, stealing very expensive eggs in an auction heist. A man nearly falls over onto a little one, but his fall is broken by Spider-Man. White Rabbit starts firing at him, but Spider-Man defeats her, takes the eggs back, webs them to safety. Hippo throws a car at Spidey, claiming the eggs would secure his future, but Spider-Man's like, hey, we're already in the future. And then somebody else is like, hey, old Spidey's back. They realize something, and this is where the point is, folks. Outside of his mask, web shooters, and the web around his nether regions, Spider-Man is completely in the nude. Thankfully, he's able to keep his mask on before his identity is revealed, but his dignity didn't have the same fate. Peter defeats all 4 villains before being chased off by angry civilians, and gets home and is like, okay, that wasn't half bad. Let's keep going, folks. In the Cadmus arc of Justice League Unlimited, Lex Luthor devised a plan to discredit Superman by running a presidential campaign and feigning an act of having reformed. Bit by bit, Superman's allies turn on him, especially after Lex causes the Justice League Watchtower's death ray to fire on Earth. The humiliating portion was during Lex's unveiling of a new city, making Superman believe he'd planted an explosive underneath. With Shazam favoring Lex, he and Superman engaged in a fight that completely leveled the city. After realizing Lex had fooled him and there was no explosive, the Justice League is discredited in the eyes of the public, and the public is calling for their surrender to the government. Oops. One of the most embarrassing ways to lose to your arch nemesis would have to be doing so on your own turf, and during the Under Siege, readers got to see exactly that. The Masters of Evil have been the antithesis of the Avengers since they premiered in the Avengers issue 6 in 1964. They were assembled by Captain America foe Baron Heinrich Zemo, who was tired of always losing to Captain America and kind of not a fan of the formation of the Avengers. Later, his son would pull together another incarnation of the Masters of Evil, made up of others who were tired of being defeated by the Avengers. This time, fueled purely by revenge, they avoided the big evil plan and just invaded Avengers Mansion while the Avengers were out. From there, things had to get worse for the Avengers before they could get better. Zemo and the Masters laid waste to the mansion and tormented Jarvis while Captain America watched. They even managed to get one over on Hercules, within an inch of his life, using a combination of manipulation and raw power. The Avengers had to regroup and call in some backup before they were able to retake their own mansion. But for quite some time there, the Masters won. They took the Avengers home from them and trashed it, while mercilessly harming several people they cared about. In Justice League issue number 69, during which the backup squad was known as Justice League International, Doomsday went out to cause huge levels of destruction. After breaking free from his prison, Doomsday rampaged through the countryside and suburbs on a collision course with Metropolis. But before Superman could swoop in and save the day, the Justice League tracked the monster down and came face to face with a force the likes of which they had never battled before. On this occasion, the monster was mostly in a subdued state, with one hand even behind his back. But yet, Doomsday steamrolled through Justice League International in what was even acknowledged in the comic book itself as an embarrassing defeat. Not only did they lose, but the defeat was in such fashion that the Justice League International's name was permanently soured.
Spidey is known for his little quips, and no one is safe from them. The Peter Parker of Earth 19,529, or the Spider-Man life story world, roasted Mr. Fantastic like he has never been roasted before. After finding out that Mr. Fantastic is withholding life-changing information from the public, again, Peter goes off on the guy. I mean, Mr. Fantastic is also talking like he is God and superpowered people are better than your average human, which Peter doesn't really appreciate. Peter says, "You're so not human that even your wife left you for a man who lives under the sea," because this is the world, of course, where Susan Storm left him for Namor. Yeah, Peter was slapped for that one, but he figured that it was the least he could do after burning the guy that bad. But the rest of the team isn't safe from being served some Spider-Man embarrassment either. In the early days of Marvel Comics, Spider-Man was looking for a team to join because he was looking for a salary. So he tried to make the Fantastic Four the Fantastic Five. Only when he leaped into the F4 headquarters, he ended up in a glass cage that he immediately broke out of despite costing the F4 thousands of dollars. He smacked the thing clear across the room, taking the Human Torch out with him, trapped Mr. Fantastic in a web, and Mrs. Fantastic was spun around until she was dizzy. All in all, he gave the team quite a run for their money. Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe was the highlight of that show, and Ultimate Spider-Man 67, the story where he gets body swapped with Wolverine, is just so funny. Not the stuff with Mary Jane, of course. I'm mainly referring to the banter between the unlikely pair. Turns out Jean Grey had swapped the two as punishment to Logan because he thought being in Peter's body would be the worst thing to ever happen, and it was for the both of them. Wolverine, with his rough approach to life, nearly ruined Peter's relationships with almost everyone, but Peter also caused some trouble, getting the guy arrested and of course making quite a few jokes at his expense, including calling Wolverine's body a chia pet and smelly. Many times, stinky dog body were his exact words. Then in a battle later, as Peter is quipping away in Logan's body, the man stops him because Peter is making him look bad. Since the X-Men caused Peter so much grief when he is swapped back, he kinda goes off on them, resulting in the iconic panel in which Spider-Man tells the team why people really hate them and then proceeds to use such colorful language it's not even written out on the page before swinging away. The X-Men decided to send Peter a basket of something as an apology. But that's not the only time Peter has embarrassed the X-Men. Towards the start of the team's journey, Spider-Man received a personal invitation to join the team in X-Men 27. Professor X himself requested that Beast and Iceman ask Peter, but he turned them down. He said it was because he had already turned down the Avengers, and I guess it wouldn't look good to turn them down and then accept another offer so soon after. Spider-Man also did it because he believed fate meant for him to be a loner. He really was an angsty teen. He literally swung away and left the two X-Men just standing there, wondering how he could turn away such an amazing offer. There was also the moment in the original Secret Wars series where Spider-Man meets the X-Men again, but on very different terms. He literally bursts onto the scene and takes the team out all while jumping and backflipping out of reach. He makes it look easy. Wolverine literally says Spider-Man made them look like fools and amateurs. Spider-Man got the chance to fight the Hulk in Amazing Spider-Man 328. In that issue, Hulk remarks that Spidey was a lot stronger than he remembered, and despite the strength the Hulk is working with, Spider-Man still comes out on top. Hulk might have had to escape because the sun was coming up and at this point he could only come out at night, but that is so beside the point. A later fight between the two heroes in Spider-Man Unlimited 11, that happened on the news, and it was cool because we watched it in the comic as if we were sitting in our local restaurant. The broadcast shows a tough fight. Hulk looks like he is winning at one point, patrons start placing bets, but then Spidey kicks the Hulk into a wall and a cement truck falls on him. Of course, throughout the whole fight, Spider-Man is also throwing out little jokes and jabs. So not only was the Hulk defeated and had a cement truck dropped on him on national TV, he also had a sarcastic commentary going too. There were a few other times when the heroes brawled, but some of them had outside factors that made the fight unfair, like tranquilizer gas for the Hulk. Peter has told MJ that he thinks he can kill the Hulk, but Peter has a no-kill rule. One thing about Spider-Man and Daredevil, they are going to throw a few punches. These two are operating in the same, admittedly large city, but still every once in a while they cross paths in ways that result in them fighting each other instead of working together. Even times when they are supposed to be working together, the plans don't always go so well. Take Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man 110 for example. The two heroes are rushing to save a victim from the Sin Eater, but after the villain is down, pretty soon Daredevil and Spider-Man have turned on each other. Peter had an emotional stake in this particular fight, so he was operating out of a place of anger, meaning he was being a bit too rough with this particular villain, and Daredevil stepped in. Very heroic of him, he tried to talk Spider-Man down, but that just got him thrown out a window by Peter, and then chased through the streets. Daredevil even says that if Peter were more in his right mind, he'd be finished. Then there was also the Amazing Spider-Man 287, in which Peter and Matt were in a cab together, and of course, they started arguing, eventually tumbling out of that cab to brawl on the sidewalk. Peter almost won that fight, if it weren't for the fact that they were in their civilian identities, so to the world, Matt is just a blind man that Peter is beating up on the sidewalk. Not a good look. Peter was physically removed by the cab driver. Those two were either the greatest team to hit New York or at each other's throats, no in between. Not even heroes from different universes are safe from the wrath of Spider-Man. Superboy, the one from DC. Yes, he went toe-to-toe with the web slinger and did not come out victorious. This one is controversial because there was a bit of a God in the machine happening here. For this face-off, it was part of a voting thing. DC and Marvel characters were up against each other, and then fans could vote about who would win the fight, and in this instance, Spider-Man won that vote, which is embarrassing on its own, but then there's also how he won the battle in the comic. It was a good time. Spidey held his own against Superboy. At one point, a water tower gets busted and floods where the two heroes are fighting. Superboy moves to attack Spider-Man, but instead he gets webbed and crashes into a high voltage box, and you can imagine how that went inside the water. The fight was over and Superboy was cooked. Spider-Man really embarrassed all the spider people and things in Into the Spider-Verse when he was able to outrun all of them. Miles Morales has proven himself to be a force to be reckoned with over the past few movies, and in the comics too, of course, but this ain't about that. There is no reason for Miles to be able to not just outrun, but also outwit thousands of spider variants from across the universe, other than he's just that special and different and cool. I imagine the sting from that was hard to nurse, and I can't wait to see how the Spider Society moves forward when they finally release the second half, hopefully. Iron Man might be a father figure to Peter in the MCU, but that story is very different in the comics. I mean, it kind of depends on who is writing, but whoever did Amazing Spider-Man 536, Volume 413, or Spider-Man Annual 20 certainly wanted to see those two tussle. The Spider-Man and Iron Man of the MCU are so tame in comparison to the comic versions of themselves. MCU Tony would give Peter a juice box and play catch in the backyard. Comic Tony has tried throwing Peter across Manhattan. MCU Tony left Peter Edith. Comic Tony roasted Peter's company to the point of Spider-Man punching him across the face and their resulting brawl being live streamed across New York. Tony tends to forget that he is but a man in a metal suit. A powerful metal suit, but a man at the end of the day. And sometimes he needs a little reminder every once in a while. Spider-Man has given him that reminder quite a few times. ASM 536 Iron Man is after Spidey because Peter is against the Superhuman Registration Act. Peter wins the fight, he overrides Iron Man's armor, and then webs him in the face for good measure. ASM 13 featured the fight after Tony insulted Peter's company to his face. In his defense, he didn't know Peter was Spider-Man, and he was saying all that stuff to Spider-Man, not Peter, but still getting clocked in front of all your friends, fans, and the internet at large, that's embarrassing. Amazing Spider-Man Annual 20 features a bunch of, Tony time travel, but the important thing to this video is that Spider-Man gets really mad at Iron Man and throws him into a construction site and then attacks him until Tony is saved by time shifting back to his reality. Rough. Captain America and Spider-Man are an unlikely sparring pair, but when they do go toe-to-toe, it's always a fun read. Cap even once admitted that he wasn't as strong as Spider-Man. But the truly embarrassing Captain Spider-Man moment happened in an alleyway. Peter at this point is wanted by the FBI, and Cap is trying to reason with him, but Peter is having a rough go of it. Cap ends up getting punched in the face. He's holding back his feelings about all of this a bit, I think, because he can tell that Peter is just acting out because he's going through it. Cap takes his shield to block another punch, but Peter grabs that shield and smashes it in the Captain's face. I think I would quit if someone defeated me with my own indestructible superhero symbol. To top it off, Peter escaped, adding some salt to the wound.
And at 10 is Aquaman. Starting off this list with the head honcho of embarrassing superheroes, we have the Atlantean king himself, Aquaman. Poor Arthur. He's always the butt of so many jokes, all because of his intimately psychic relationship with creatures of the sea. And yeah, I totally get it, he's kinda easy to pick on. But he's also really good at his job, guys. Yeah, he's made some poor choices before, like dropping whales on his enemies. Not really helping your image there, Arthur. But he really is an asset to the Justice League. And let's not forget, he's been around since the Golden Age. Longevity is key. Plus, he arguably has the hottest girlfriend out of all of the Justice League members, so clearly something's gotta give. And at 9 is Squirrel Girl. So before I begin on this number, I just want to say that I think Squirrel Girl has evolved into a really cool character over the years. So we're gonna be focusing on her earlier appearances, where she looked like this. Yeah, I can see why characters in the Marvel Universe would be pulling at their collars when she arrived on the scene. That being said, she's undermined a whole lot of them in her days. And guess what? Attack by squirrels. Yeah, those villains never saw it coming. This just goes to show that if people ever call you an embarrassment, there's a damn good chance they just don't know what you're capable of. So here's to Squirrel Girl, setting an example we should all follow. And at 8 is Jello Man and Wobbly. A superhero made of jello? Yes, that's exactly what the kids want to read about. Okay, to be fair, Jello Man and Wobbly were characters created for a promotional comic book distributed by Kraft back in 1991. But let's think about this. Just how much might and ability does a walking piece of jello really have? And Jello's purpose in life? To make sure nothing comes between Jello and the children who actually want to eat it. So isn't that kind of, because you're Jello too, so does that mean you're cool with kids eating you? Or I don't know, just elaborate a little bit here with me, dude. I'm assuming he wasn't the most self-aware guy out there. And at 7 is Super Dupont. From a French comic strip that was published in 1972, Super Dupont, which I'm probably mispronouncing, is a combined parody of Superman and French national attitudes. He's got a rooster sidekick, and a bit of a gut, and a beret. And he's fighting against an evil national power called the Anti-France, who wants to destroy France, because they're anti-France. Well, it's actually a witty commentary on the perspectives of French culture from within and outside of it. But Super Dupont is still not the kind of hero you'd really want saving you. You could choose what hero could save you. I guess you don't really have a choice in the matter. But he loves smoking cigarettes, drinking red wine, and eats French cheese. He also refuses to be painted with China ink. So there's that. And at 6 is Color Kid. So there's this great league of superheroes, and it's called the Legion of Substitute Heroes. So basically the superheroes that couldn't get into the Legion of Superheroes goes to Legion of Substitute Heroes. And Color Kid is definitely a member of this team. What does Color Kid do? He has the ability to change colors, like touching things and changing colors. So of course the Legion was like, bro, you're kind of useless. And actually, yes, useless was the word that they used. And he's like, nah guys, I'm valuable too, and then joined the Legion of Substitute Heroes. I mean, he probably could have had a great career in interior design though, so missed opportunity there, dude. And at 5 is Gin Genie. What's more embarrassing than having to fight crime with your alcoholic friend who sometimes beats you up? Well, I'm sure there's a lot more embarrassing things out there, but I can imagine that at the time, hanging with Gin Genie while she verbally and physically abuses you to distract from the issue that she has greater problems is, well, pretty bad. Her power comes from her being drunk, and while it's actually kind of effective, it isn't really worth it, because the gin kinda does get the best of her. And at 4 is Dollman. Dollman was a Golden Age creation, first appearing in Future Comics 77 via Quality Comics, and was created by Will Eisner. While the man is a genius, he's not always infallible, friends, and here's an example. Anyway, Dollman wore a tiny onesie tight, and a cape, and could shrink in size, which somewhat sounds all good and fine, right? Except his comics featured him constantly being tied up in ropes or in other binding, from crucifixion style bondage to being hogtied. So the bondage motif was strong with this one. There were also a lot of women who were portrayed in submissive sexualized positions throughout the comic. So while his powers may have been an asset, his bondage left a lot of people feeling uncomfortable. He also rode around in a plane called the Doll Plane, so there's that too, and I imagine that probably was kind of embarrassing. And at 3 is Golden Lad. Ever hear of Golden Lad? Well, he was a short-lived character who first appeared in a story by Spark Publications in 1945. And he had a couple of stories of his own after that. He's a high school kid who discovers an Aztec artifact called the Heart of Gold, which had magical powers from the blood of thousands of people. Okay, it's a little dark. It gave Golden Lad powers, who, in his spare time, liked to do stuff like this, and apparently liked to jump around belly flop style. Often. And was sometimes kind of slow. Yeah, enough said. Also, his name is Golden Lad, and that's kind of lame. And in our number 2 spot is Arm Fall Off Boy. We featured this heroic handyman on some of our other lists, but let's be honest, Mr. Floyd Belkin has an ability that sometimes just leaves his teammates feeling really awkward, and his costume probably didn't help on that front either. First appearing in Secret Origins Volume 2, number 46 in 1989, Fall Off Arm Boy had the ability to detach his own limbs and then use them as blunt weapons. So dude can basically take off his arm and whack you with it. Nothing says heroism like beating up a criminal with a lifeless body part. Joy. Let's just hope that he kept it to his arms and his legs. And at number 1 is Matter Eater Lad. Okay, dude pretty much eats anything, that's his power. To eat stuff that you normally should never consume, like metal and plastic. And he saves the day by eating fences. Sure, yeah, he can eat stuff like stun beam rays, which would probably be helpful when not trying to get shot at, but even his teammates are constantly like, whoa, dude, really? You want to eat a ray gun for lunch? That's fucking weird, bro. And like, you're freaking out Cosmic Boy a little bit over here. And also, please stop eating all of our expensive stuff. We really don't have insurance for this shit.
Number 10, Cyborg. In Injustice Gods Among Us number 15, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, and Superman go to Arkham Asylum to move its prisoners to Superman's quote-unquote secure facility. Cyborg takes control of the asylum security and begins opening cell doors for Flash to whisk away the prisoners inside. When he is about to open the Riddler's cell, Batman gives him a little warning not to, which Cyborg ignores. All it takes is one button on Batman's utility belt and Cyborg's systems go haywire. He falls to the ground, writhing in pain, until Nightwing steps in and presses the button again. It turns out that after Cyborg checks the date of the virus that caused this, Batman had uploaded the virus the very first day the two met, and he's had it the whole time. An easy little button press and he takes down an extremely advanced Cyborg. Number 9, Green Green Arrow. In the deceased storyline, when an anti-life virus is spreading throughout the globe and infects Superman, Damian Wayne, the Batman at the time, gets access to Bruce's files around taking down the Justice League. The funniest and most embarrassing thing though is that when Green Arrow assumes there's a file with his name on it, Damian informs him that there isn't. Batman didn't have a single file for Green Arrow. He didn't even see Green Arrow as a real threat. Bruce is dishing out the embarrassments even beyond the grave. But Green Arrow could be a planetary threat if he wanted to. Wait a minute, you know what would be really embarrassing? If you didn't like and subscribe to our channel. Kidding, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. Do it. Do it. Do it. Number 8, the Hulk. Bet you didn't expect to see this on the list. Honestly, who would? I know who. Anyone who knows that Batman is Batman, that's who. In 1981's DC Special Series number 27, Batman comes upon the rampaging Green Rage monster. The Joker had tricked Hulk into believing Batman was an enemy. The Hulk ended up getting the Dark Knight in a bear hug, where he almost broke the Bat's back. Batman busts out of it and uses a knockout gas. But Hulk ain't that dumb, and he just holds his breath. Until Batman kicks him straight in the stomach, winding the Green Giant and causing him to breathe in. Yeah, it's probably unrealistic as hell, but it's a man that fights criminals in a bat suit fighting a guy that turns into a giant green monster because of gamma rays from a bomb. So tell me how that's realistic. Number 7, Green Lantern. First off, Justice League War is an awesome animated DC movie. We see the Justice League come together for the first time. In one of the first interactions between Green Lantern and Batman in a sewer, there's a bit of banter between Hal and Bruce when Hal realizes that Batman is literally just some guy in a bat costume. And he asks, "What, no one asked you to prom, so now you just dress as a bat and prowl around your parents' basement?" Batman, in response, simply just pauses and then asks, "What's this do?" as he holds up the Green Lantern's ring. It makes me genuinely chuckle. But then, when Green Lantern tries to tell him that he won't be able to do that again, Batman just hits him with, "Unless I want to." What a boss. Number 6, Green Lantern again. In All-Star Batman and Robin, the Boy Wonder, Green Lantern gets shown up. In order to face Hal Jordan, Batman lures him into a room where he has painted literally everything yellow. Why? The Green Lantern ring has the unfortunate weakness of not being able to affect anything yellow. So all the furniture, his and Robin's costumes, even their faces, and to top it all off, he even taunts Green Lantern while drinking lemonade. To really top it off, Batman isn't even the one to fight the Lantern. He leaves that to his ward, Robin, who admittedly takes it a bit too far. Number 5. Okay, one last Green Lantern defeat. Now, before you jump on me for including 3 times he's embarrassed the Green Lantern, you should know that 1, I don't even like Green Lantern that much, and 2, this time it was Guy Gardner, who is arguably the most annoying one. In 1987's Justice League number 5, or Justice League International number 5, Guy Gardner is his usual cocky, jerkish self. And a conflict between him and Batman has been brewing for a few issues, with Guy just kind of being a huge pain in the butt. But when Guy finally rears back to throw his punch, the Dark Knight is in there so fast, punching this guy so hard he knocks him clean out. And then him and the rest of the league leave him on the floor while they continue planning and even go on missions. Then, he doesn't even come to until like 2 issues later, when he just accidentally knocks himself back out. Number 4. Punisher. Punisher/Batman Deadly Nights is a very short-lived confrontation between these two heroes occurs when Batman stops Punisher from killing the Joker, which, as we know, goes against Batman's ideology. He interrupts the Punisher, coming in between him and his gun, and telling the Joker to run. In his frustration, Punisher drops his pistol and gets one mean punch in across Batman's face. Just the one though, as Batman lets him know he will only allow that one. Seeing how the Punisher probably thinks Bruce deserves it, it really gets embarrassing when Mr. Castle goes for a second swing and Batman redirects the punch in one move, sending the Punisher face first into a pile of boxes stacked up against a brick wall. When Batman tells you you only get one, you best believe him. Number 3. Justice Buster armor. In the Endgame story, the Joker has twisted the other members of the Justice League with his Joker toxin, meaning we get to see Batman take them all on. While we know he has contingencies for each member of the League, Batman instead dons an armor that has the capability to subdue every member of the Justice League, the Justice Buster. Using this suit, he puts Wonder Woman in a dream state, maps out the Flash's movements, and causes him to slip and crash into a building, knocking him out. He fires a foam made up of magnesium carbonate at Aquaman that envelops him and drains him of the moisture in his body the more he struggles. And then, Superman shows up. The Justice Buster has plasma shields to deflect eye beams, thrusters and thermals to deter frost breath, but this is a Superman that isn't pulling his punches. When Superman gets through this armor, it doesn't matter though. Batman spits a polymer laced with green kryptonite dust into Superman's eyes, rendering him powerless. Number 2, beating Superman as an old man. In the exceedingly famous Dark Knight Returns story, we see what is arguably one of the best Superman vs. Batman fights to ever grace comics. In the last issue, number 4, pits an aged Bruce Wayne against a Superman that has become a puppet of the government. Superman has been weakened by a nuclear explosion. He's been hit by hunter missiles, shot from a tank, shot with a sonic gun that makes his nose bleed. Batman uses every watt of the city's power to electrocute Superman's brain. Batman then socks Superman straight across the face a few times, shoots acid in his face, and after being hit with a green kryptonite arrow, Superman takes a studded boot to the jaw before Batman seemingly dies of a heart attack. Even at 55, he left Superman battered and bleeding, and the whole thing was just a ruse. Well played. Number 1. He put all the other heroes to shame. Of all the insanely powered heroes in the DC universe, Batman is the last person you or I think could pose a threat to Darkseid. So it's kind of embarrassing for every other hero that has lost to Darkseid when in the final Crisis event, Bruce Wayne simply shoots Darkseid with a radion bullet, killing him, just like that. Yeah, he had the element of surprise because not a single soul thought he could pull off anything like that. Not even Superman could defeat Darkseid here. What makes it better is that it's not the only time he has beaten the God of Death. That's why you don't underestimate Batman, y'all. Starting at number 10, stealing the powers of the Silver Surfer. Fantastic Four from 1961, number 57, sees Dr. Doom take the power cosmic from the Herald of Galactus himself. The Silver Surfer ends up in Latveria and receives an invitation from Dr. Doom himself. The Surfer goes and Doom gives him a tour of his laboratory, acting very uncharacteristically humble and friendly. He then distracts the Surfer with a temporal photo of the universe, because of course he does, and then uses inductors to steal his cosmic powers. Doom then steals the Surfer's surfboard and flies to New York to attack the Fantastic Four with his newfound power. Number 9, Avengers Emperor Doom. In Avengers Emperor Doom, Victor uses a psychoprism to imprison the villain Purple Man and use his willpower manipulating abilities to force nearly everyone on Earth to obey Dr. Doom. He obviously succeeded, with the only Avenger not affected by Purple Man's powers being Wonder Man, who is horrified to find Doom in control of the entire world. Only, Doom's world isn't exactly a bad place. Peace has been achieved, crime is practically non-existent, even nuclear weapons have been destroyed, and apartheid had been ended. On the other hand though, the people of the world were not actually free to do what they wished with their own willpower. Since Doom is ultimately the villain though, Wonder Man begins freeing the Avengers, who collectively have the strongest willpower so they can team up to overthrow Doom, setting the world back to its former order. But I think a lot of readers were kind of like, hey, wait a minute, maybe Doom's world ain't so bad, bro. If you fans of Doom are enjoying this video, and you aren't already, make sure you subscribe to us here at Top 10 Nerd to see more videos like this one. Alright. Moving on. Number 8, saved the multiverse. In 2015's Secret Wars, the Beyonders, incredibly powerful alien entities from another dimension, planned to destroy all of creation by using the Molecule Man, who was actually created by the Beyonders, to be detonated and act as a universe-destroying force. Luckily for all of reality, Dr. Doom exists. The Molecule Man from Earth 616, along with Dr. Doom and Doctor Strange, gathered a bunch of Molecule Men from various realities, combined them into a super weapon, and launched this weapon against the Beyonders with a kiss and a hug. It completely destroyed the Beyonders, but it also destroyed everything else. Someone needed to take the energy from the Beyonders and recreate all of existence, and who is more worthy than Victor Von Doom? Doom recreated reality in the form of Battleworld. Now, of course, in this new reality, Doom was the Emperor, the Thing was turned into a giant wall, and Johnny Storm was the sun, but the villain Dr. Doom saved the Marvel multiverse. How many heroes can say that? Number 7, selling Doctor Strange to Mephisto. In the beginning of his comic book life, Doom wanted nothing more than to save his mother from the hold of Mephisto. Once a year, every year, Doom would challenge Mephisto for the fate of his mother's soul, but he almost always lost. Until 1989, when he teamed up with Doctor Strange in Triumph and Torment. Shortly after their arrival in Hell, the Doctors began to realize that they don't really stand a chance at winning at all. When the two become separated, Mephisto makes Doom an offer: Doctor Strange's soul in exchange for his mother's, a deal that Doom actually accepts. Doom captured Strange and made the deal, but after Doom's mom became so offended that her son would sell the Sorcerer Supreme just to save her soul, she refused to be freed, and that's when Dr. Doom's real plan could actually kick in. Thanks to his mother's pure act and a gadget that Doom slipped into Strange's cloak, the Sorcerer Supreme was able to use the light of this pure act to wound Mephisto and free himself and Victor's mother, and the three of them escaped. Doom pulled an old Uno reverse by not letting the Sorcerer Supreme in on his plan. Number 6. Doombots. In the Ultimate Spider-Man animated series, in an episode fittingly titled Doomed, the heroes decide to prove themselves by catching S.H.I.E.L.D's most wanted villain, Dr. Doom. The kids actually seem to do it though, successfully capturing Doom and returning him to the S.H.I.E.L.D. helicarrier. But it's never that simple with Dr. Doom. After he arrives, Doom reveals that he was actually the Mark 6 Hoberman, which is a version of the Doombot with a bunch of smaller Doombots inside, each smaller than the last one, like one of those Russian nesting dolls. The robots work together, very nearly crashing the helicarrier and everyone inside. One of the littlest Doombots even yells, "Feel the wrath of Doom!" in like a super high-pitched voice. It's honestly quite fantastic. Number 5. He was a more successful Iron Man. Infamous Iron Man will forever be one of my favorite Dr. Doom related stories, and it's honestly because of that awesome armor, but also because Doom almost does a better job fighting crime than Tony Stark himself. Taking up the mantle of the then comaed Tony Stark, Victor Von Doom declares himself a hero and went about trying to fix the world. But not just any hero, he specifically takes on the role of Iron Man. One of the ways Doom went about saving the world was using his knowledge of the criminal underworld from when he was a criminal to arrest a large gathering of villains in one big move. What's kind of hilarious is that these villains were all gathered to figure out what they were going to actually do now that Doom has switched sides. During that, Doom busts in through the roof and took down heavy hitters such as the Wizard, the Wrecking Crew, the Hood, and Jigsaw all in one go. Number 4. Doom War. If you've never read Doom War, it's probably one of Dr. Doom's more ruthless moments. Essentially, after funding a coup that banished T'Challa from Wakanda, Doom set his sights on Wakanda's treasure, the Vibranium Mound. However, T'Challa had hidden the Vibranium behind a series of increasingly complex locks. The last of these locks was a bit more spiritual, as in order to get through it, you needed to be deemed worthy by the Panther God herself. Not many of us thought Doom could do that, but it's Dr. Doom. He immediately strips down to his nothings and offers himself up for judgment. Now the Panther Goddess realizes and notes that not only does Doom want to create a peaceful world for all mankind, but that out of a million different futures, his is the one that creates a world without evil. You can imagine that T'Challa was quite taken aback by that one. Number 3. Save the world where others failed. Again, I guess. In Marvel 2-in-1, The Thing and Human Torch, an alternate universe story, The Thing was killed trying to fight Galactus with his fists. Honestly, someone should have told him that that was a bad idea. Either way, it happened, and Reed Richards went mad with grief and tried to take down Galactus himself, which actually didn't work out and left the whole world defenseless. And of course, it's Dr. Doom who comes to the rescue, with both a plan and alien technology. Doom ends up swapping minds with Galactus, leaving the Devourer trapped in Doom's body while Doom's mind now controls the cosmic force of nature. Despite his newfound hunger, Doom swore to the people of Earth that they would be spared, and he didn't lie. Doom didn't eat the Earth. Instead, he ate literally everything else in the whole entire universe. But he defeated Galactus and Reed Richards did not, and that probably made Doom happier than any amount of planet consuming. Number 2. The Sentry. I could very easily do a speed round of Dr. Doom overpowering heroes and villains alike. He's removed the powers of the Fantastic Four in Fantastic Four number 70. His willpower is strong enough to overcome the persuasion powers of Purple Man and Emperor Doom. He has put down the Hulk, taken hits from Thor, and sensed the telepathic powers of Emma Frost. But I think what kind of makes me drop my jaw more than anything else is when he has gone up against the Sentry. The Sentry is probably the most powerful of Marvel's Superman-like characters. He's kind of basically a god. But Doom is Doom, and Doom cares not for gods. Not only has he tanked hits from the Sentry, which is absolutely insane, but in the Mighty Avengers number 10, Doom uses magic to very, very badly hurt a mentally distressed Sentry simply for placing his hands on the one and only Doom. And in at number 1 is Latveria. Okay, so this point isn't really a single instance, it's more like a constant. One of the biggest things about Doom that I think puts heroes to shame on the daily is the fact that he has made his country one of the greatest in the world, and despite being a bit of a dictator, his people love him for it. After becoming Doom, he returned to Latveria and took the country from the dictator that had ruined his life from birth, and he made the country one of the greatest nations on Earth. Some of the lowest crime rates, the highest literacy, and the highest employment rates, and it's a world power. He had complete control always, but unlike dictators who are loved at first and then hated, Doom was always loved. Heroes like Ben Grimm, for example, found this out on their own in issue number 10 of Infamous Iron Man when Ben was talking to a Latvian citizen. He said, "At least Doom is gone," and then the woman was like, no, I'd give anything to have him back, he always loved us. Number 10, Hulk. We all know of the famous Hulkbuster suit. But would it just blow your minds if I told you that Iron Man has defeated the Hulk without it? Yes, that's right. In Iron Man issue 132, our Golden Avenger faced off mano-a-mano against the strongest Green Avenger. And when I tell you this was one hell of a fight, I ain't lying. After an attempt at helping Bruce Banner results in the Hulk persona emerging, resulting in Tony donning the suit and protecting his employees, the fight goes from Stark Industries to underwater to an Air Force base where the two basically play baseball with a luggage carrier and Tony's favorite jet. The resulting explosion stunned the Hulk, and in that moment, Tony mustered every bit of solar and reserve energy he could, overriding the safety protocols of his suit to hit the stunned Hulk with a singular massive punch that knocked out Hulk and killed that suit of armor. Number 9, Sentry/The Void. This is one of those do whatever the hell I can to defeat you kind of moments. In the Marvel Siege storyline, Bob Reynolds, the Sentry, one of Marvel's Superman characters, has joined with Norman Osborn and his Dark Avengers, being somewhat taken over by the Void. In the end of the story, the Sentry, using the power of the Void, was directed by Osborn to take out the floating city of Asgard, which he did, sending it crashing to the ground. And then he de-lifed Loki. The other Avengers and Thor have not been able to defeat Sentry/Void yet, so as one last ditch attempt, Iron Man uses a whole Hammer helicarrier as a missile and crashes the whole thing down on top of him. This weakens the Void enough that Thor can end him with a blow from Mjolnir, but damn, Tony really just had enough of this guy. Number 8, Hawkeye. Surprise! Hawkeye does not stand a chance against Iron Man, but he did actually put up a pretty good fight the first 2 times they fought. Both times were in Tales of Suspense in issue 57 and 60. Hawkeye's first appearances before he was actually a hero, when he was instead a criminal. Natasha Romanoff, who is also a criminal at the time, tricks Clint into helping her steal Tony's powerful tech. It doesn't go too well for them though. At the end of the first fight in issue 57, Tony gets Clint clinging onto a pole, which he then bends and flicks like one of those little door stopper things, thwanging little Robin Hood here into the water and then saving the unconscious Clint from drowning. Doth Mother know you have not liked or subscribed? Well, that's okay if you don't want to, but it would be appreciated. Okay, let's move on. Number 7, Captain Marvel and Gamora. Combo! Wham bam! Actually, more like pew pew. Look, love it or hate it, the second Marvel Civil War event happened. I could get into what the conflict itself was actually about, but that doesn't really have anything to do with this point. The main thing you need to know is that just like the first Civil War, the superhuman community is split, with Iron Man leading one side and Carol Danvers leading the other. At the time of this story, Iron Man was sporting his Model Prime armor, an armor that could basically shapeshift and change color for whatever it was he needed to do at the time, making the need for multiple armors a little redundant. During a conflict with Captain Marvel and her group, Tony was under attack from some pretty powerful heroes, specifically Captain Marvel and Gamora jumped in to do battle before they were dispatched from a single blast from Iron Man. Just one shot is all he needed. Damn. Number 6, Emma Frost. Did you know the Avengers fought the X-Men? Yes, it's true. And a comic titled, get this, Avengers vs. X-Men. It's a good title. Seriously though, the conflict blossomed when the Phoenix Force is headed straight to Earth with mutant Hope Summers as its supposed host. The Avengers believe this is bad juju for the population of Earth, and the X-Men think this is gonna be what they need for the mutant population to be reborn. A battle happens between the two teams at the mutant island of Utopia. Partway through, Emma Frost comes to make a move, saying telepathically to Cyclops she can shut down the Avengers telepathically, and she is going to end this. Then Iron Man chimes in, "I bet you thought you were just about to end this," as he fires microscopic telepathic tasers at her and hopes she will let him make it up to her over dinner. She punches him in the stomach and he blasts back with his repulsors, but this genuinely made me snicker. Number 5. Facial hair bros. Right smack dab in the middle of the video, sort of not really, I want to do something completely different. Something finally not combat related. Yet a victory for Tony and an embarrassment for none other than Stephen Strange the Sorcerer Supreme. In Invincible Iron Man number 3, Iron Man goes to Doctor Strange for help with a little problem he is having. As he's about to leave the Sanctum Sanctorum, he goes, "Thanks, Doctor," and stays there like this for 8 comic book panels, until Steven gives him a very, very reluctant high five as Tony yells, "Awesome, facial hair bros!" And Steven says, "I hate you." I'm sorry, I had to include this. Number 4, Namor. Iron Man and Namor the Submariner have always had a pretty tense relationship, both having massive egos. They have gone at it with their words and their fisticuffs multiple different times. From what I can tell, the powerful Submariner usually has the win more than often. But Iron Man isn't a pushover. He's gotten some good shots, and in Iron Man number 25 in 1970, we have an example of him winning, in a somewhat hilarious way too. Basically, unbeknownst to Tony, his company had been polluting the ocean with a pipeline. Now yes, that is very, very bad. But if you just go and talk to Tony, I'm sure he'd fix the issue. No, that is not the Submariner's way. No, instead, he attacks, destroying the pipeline and then attacking the buildings it's connected to. To subdue Namor, Tony uses the heating coils of his suit to evaporate all the water in Namor's body, basically rendering him powerless. And then he ties him up to an under construction tower using metal beams. It's kind of hilarious looking, and I feel like Namor could easily slip out of that, like the power of gravity, but it's certainly embarrassing. Number 3, Spider-Man. Spider-Man and Iron Man here have a bit of an interesting relationship. In the MCU, it's very father-son, but in the comics, and specifically in the Civil War event, while Tony takes Peter under his wing and even gives him some great upgrades, actually manipulates the Spider-Lad quite a little bit. Spider-Man switches to Captain America's side, and in Iron Man Volume 4, number 14, Spider-Man, alongside a few other heroes, launch a surprise attack on Tony. While Spider-Man has beaten Tony before, specifically when Tony threatened Mary Jane and Aunt May, the use of the spider armor gave Tony a ton of information about Parker's spider sense. Not just being able to replicate it for himself, but he got the information to use Peter's against him, which he does while making a nice little baseball themed strike 1, 2, and 3, fitting as they are fighting at Yankee Stadium. Number 2, Daredevil. You know what? I really liked Superior Iron Man. The story was cool, and Tony was, well, he was kind of an almost villain, honestly. Specifically, there were 2 times with Daredevil that showcased this really well. After Tony got the whole population of San Francisco addicted to a social media platform, and then began charging them subscription fees for it, trust me, it's a lot more sinister than I'm making it sound, Daredevil goes to Tony's base on Alcatraz Island to confront him, and shut him down. Obviously, that wasn't going to go the way he wanted it to. But even I didn't expect Tony to just pick him up by the throat, tell him he's always welcome but to leave the attitude at home, and then straight up just chuck the blind superhero without fear into the freezing waters of the San Francisco Bay. Cold. Literally. Number 1, Captain America. We love Civil War. Not the actual Civil War, the Marvel one. So many great examples of superheroes fighting other superheroes. But the main star of the show in this conflict is Iron Man versus Captain America. And while the climactic fight ultimately ended in a Captain America favored draw, I'd say the first major fight was definitely more of a win for Tony. In issue 3 and 4 of the main Civil War comic, a battle takes place between the forces of both Cap and Stark. While Steve is fighting Spider-Man, Iron Superman comes swooping in, attacking with an armor that's analyzed every fight Cap has ever had. And he just starts going to town on the guy, feeding him the left, right, until Cap is absolutely battered. Cap still doesn't go down, so Tony uses a high frequency that shuts down the human brain. He's about to end the fight when Hercules jumps in, attacking him with an oil tanker truck.